Mesdames et messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen, and dear Jacques, dear speakers and guests, good morning. On behalf of all the insurers who are members of the French Insurance Federation, I wish you a warm welcome here in Paris for our 11th International Conference. Most of you are now getting accustomed to this exercise, and I'm delighted. This is my very first conference as president, and I'm very proud, of course. I do strongly wish to work with all of you, representatives of federations, public authorities, companies, regulators, supervisors. We must all work together to help our different projects to move forward and to best serve our profession, and above all, to enable it to play its role to the fullest extent in our society. Along these lines, this international forum plays an essential role. Indeed, an opportunity for us to gather are quite few and far between, too rare, when you realize to what extent our profession is facing threats that are increasingly global. We see everywhere, increasing political instability. I'm thinking of Brexit, of course, that we would not have imagined 3 years ago. And I'm thinking of the political movements such as the Yellow Vests or the arrival of populist parties in power in Europe. But instability is also economical, with slower growth, with trade conflicts, and above all for us insurers, rates that are becoming negative. This is the very first time in the history of our profession, and above all in the economic history, that money costs nothing. You can become rich by taking out debts. And let me point out that French insurers in this respect are very robust. I must reassert this, and can play all their commitments, hold out all their commitments so they're insured. But loyal to our forward-looking vision at the heart of our business, we must contemplate the consequences of this if this abnormal situation were to continue. And this is why we will devote a whole panel discussion to that topic this afternoon. In addition to political and economic uncertainties, and as pointed out by the President of the Council, Enrico Litai, last night, there are also deep-seated trends that will strongly impact us in our everyday life and also at work. I'm thinking in particular of digital technologies that open up exceptional opportunities, you should bear that in mind, but also raise a certain number of challenges in terms of cyber risks or data management. Insurers at these two levels must make an essential contribution to build the society of tomorrow by proposing different forms of risk coverage, of course, but also by perfectly playing their role as a trusted third party. Insurance is the historical business of data. You have been providing us with that for decades, and we've always been able to efficiently protect data. Another basic trend is climate change that is increasingly costly from a human perspective, but also from a financial perspective. Insurers for decades, insurers and reassurers, have invested heavily to mitigate that risk, and in that respect, they are particularly well positioned to help to keep it in control in the future. And lastly, I'm thinking of the aging populations, raising a huge challenge for all our societies when it comes to pensions, dependency, and health. And here too, insurers must provide answers. In light of this panorama, which should not create anxiety, I believe that insurers must embrace all of these changes and should not be afraid, and quite the contrary, they should seize the opportunity to propose concrete solutions to our fellow citizens. We are professionals of risks, managers of uncertainty, and these periods are therefore fruitful for us. But to do so, we must have room to maneuver to carry out our trade. We need the right rules, efficient rules, so that we can fully play our role. In that respect, it is extremely important for me, for the revision of Solvency II that will be starting, to be framed by a clear political mandate, taking into account the current political situation and the challenges to which we must rise. These are points that will be reviewed in the third panel. As you can see, a very rich day dealing with impactful matters for our profession. I would now like to thank in particular our speakers of extremely great quality. Some have come from afar to shed light on these matters. I would, of course, like to thank the teams from the FSA, mobilized for months now to organize this event, to make this event a success. I will now give the floor to our first speaker for today, who's doing us the great honor of being with us today, Mr. Jacques de la Rosière, former Director General of the IMF. Dear Jacques, thank you for accepting our invitation. And I will now give you the floor to tell us more about monetary policies and negative rates.